Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Fixing Diablo 2. And as always, I want to strongly say in the beginning of the video is that I don't think Diablo 2 is broken, but there are some skills that are kind of on the outlier, and they don't really work as well as you might think they would. One of those such skills that doesn't really get as much love is the Poison Dagger. The Poison Dagger Necromancer is definitely one of the Necromancers that is abilities, it's not really quite as good as it should be. And let's go ahead and reset him real quick so we can get him set up properly. Now, to max out Poison Dagger, first off, you have to build all three poison skills. And this is something that I've always felt was kind of poopy. Because, well, poison damage doesn't stack. So Poison Nova doesn't stack with Poison Explosion, and Poison Explosion doesn't stack with Poison Dagger, and so forth and so on. And so the abilities really aren't compatible with each other in terms of damage output. Like, for instance, if you attack something with Poison Explosion and then stab it with Poison Dagger, you would think that you would get the cumulative total of both Poison Dagger and Poison Explosion. But the truth is that you only get the Poison Explosion damage, and that's it. This actually works against the Poison Dagger Necromancer, not for him, which is really unfortunate. Now, this particular Necromancer, I was trying to remember how I had him set up. It's been a little while. I'm pretty sure that I would have had the golem at the very least. And on top of that, we need our Poison Dagger, and we need the full synergies. And I'm pretty sure that I went ahead and capped out Bone Armor because I needed that for defensive capability. Now, this is an example of a Necromancer that actually works. And you might be wondering, why the hell am I making a bone, a Poison Dagger video for fixing it if it works? Well, I mean, it kind of works, I guess. It's kind of difficult to say that it works because there are some definite problems with the ability and the way that they function. One right off the bat is obviously the attack rating problems, which attack rating problems are across the board on basically like every single character. And if you don't have enough attack rating, you're not doing much of anything, which is an issue. So attack rating problems do come in with this particular character. But let's go ahead and grab like pretty much everything we've got here. And I'm going to show you really quickly how this character actually performs. This is a character I labeled the Poison Bomb. And the reason why this character is called the Poison Bomb is because I utilized the new rune word Plague to create a character around the Poison Dagger. And one of the things that you're going to notice with my Poison Bomb character is that, well, he kind of works, I guess. I mean, we're in Players 8 right now. We're in Hell difficulty. Let's just go ahead and get these kills in. So we're just going to do as much damage as we possibly can here. And as you can see, in Players 8, I can actually kill things. I mean, there is that. I need to get my hands on some mana potions, unfortunately. Poison Dagger does have an issue with kind of like... the physical damage is obviously really low, and I don't really think I even have any mana leech on this character, so we're going to have to compensate for by getting potions. There we go. Alright, so let's get our frickin' poison going on. As you can see, we've got our lower resistance, and things are dying. Look at this. Things are actually dying. It's a character that I set up specifically to try and take advantage of the Plague rune word and to see how well I could potentially make a character around, Poison Dagger. Problems with Poison Dagger, though. Number one, it's very single target. It's on a character that's not exactly the strongest in melee, and it is obviously a melee ability. The main issue, though, with Poison Dagger, and it's actually kind of crazy, is it's not actually a problem with Poison Dagger, it's actually a problem with durability. You may notice that in one fight, I burned 3 durability off my Fang Knife, but my Fang Knife breaks relatively quickly. 30 durability is nothing, and a lot of the times I even ran into situations, like for instance when I tried to kill like Uber Diablo and things like that, I couldn't even kill him before my weapon broke, which is unfortunate. Poison Dagger has a lot of problems with it. And we're going to talk about those really quickly. So first off is it's tied to daggers. And daggers have very low durability. This is a problem because daggers also attack very fast. Attacking fast is obviously a bad thing when you're trying to preserve durability. If I had a weapon that had like 30 durability, I would probably want it to attack very slow so that I would hit really hard in between each attack, and each attack would dish out more and more damage, right? So you run in, you hit somebody with a dagger, well, you attack them multiple times. I mean, the faster you attack them, the more damage you do, right? But that's actually not the case. And this is another con of Poison Dagger, is that because Poison Dagger doesn't even stack with itself, multiple hits do nothing except refresh duration. So the way that poison works is that the highest poison damage effect at any given time is the one that is going to actually have effect on the monster. So if I attack a monster with my 27,611 poison damage, that monster is then poisoned for 16.8 seconds. And for 16.8 seconds, it doesn't matter how many times I attack that monster, they're not getting any additional damage to them during that time period. It doesn't stack the duration. It just simply refreshes the duration back to 16.8 seconds, doesn't add any additional poison damage onto it. It's unfortunate because that's just the way that Poison Dagger works, is it doesn't really, like, attacking multiple times with Poison Dagger isn't effective. And that's just one of the many problems. Another problem with Poison Dagger is it is single target damage. This is a big issue because, of course, being single target, it only hits one target at a time. Yes, you can run around and you can attack multiple targets. So the optimal way to do things is actually to go and stab everything once, basically, is what you do with Poison Dagger. So instead of stabbing one monster, because you can't really get any good effect, is you stab one monster, move on, stab one monster, move on, stab one monster, move on. And you do this basically as many times as you possibly can, stabbing each monster in sequence and letting the poison work its magic, essentially, right? So, poison stab, and we gotta stab, and then we stab, and then we're gonna stab him, and we keep doing this until we get our effect, right? Well, it works, I guess. From that perspective, I guess running around stabbing everything works, but it kind of ignores the main thing that, well, Poison Dagger has going for it. So as a spellcaster, one of the things that you don't get as a spellcaster is you don't get open wounds. There's no way to apply it, really, as a spellcaster. You don't get crushing blow. You don't get life leech, mana leech, or life tap, right? So you get none of these things as a caster. Well, because this is a melee ability, it actually does get these things. So running around like a chicken with your head cut off, attacking one monster, attacking another monster, attacking another monster, attacking another monster, doesn't really take advantage of the thing that makes the ability so good. Is obviously the ability to hit. To actually dish out these melee effects, right? So you have to like run around and constantly attack multiple monsters. It's not always easy either because sometimes you get stuck in the middle of the monsters. You also have to wait, obviously, for the monsters to slowly die over that long period of time. Hitting them multiple times doesn't do any good for the poison, but it does, of course, for things like open wounds, crushing blow, etc. Another big problem with Poison Dagger is that, well, you can't really use minions with it. And you might be asking why. Well, it has to do with the fact that the way that minions cancel out the damage of the Poison Dagger. So the more minions you have hitting, the less poison damage you have on a target. Like if you're attacking Diablo, for instance, and let's say you have a full army of, say, like 20 skeletons, and the 20 skeletons are wailing away at Diablo, well, they're doing less damage than you. and they're also canceling out your poison in the process. So not only are they doing less damage than you, but they're also canceling out your damage, and they're making the entire fight take longer as a result. Which is another issue with poison damage, is that other damage can cancel out poison damage almost entirely, depending on how much other additional damage is coming into the target. So, if you're a full summon Necromancer, along with being a poison Necromancer, the summon part of the poison Necromancer actually kind of cancel things out. So it makes it bad to build skeletons with something like this. And you would think in this one scenario is probably where you would want the skeletons, because you're a melee Necromancer trying to go into melee range, and so having other skeletons with you while you're going into melee is a boon. Whenever you're a melee character, doesn't matter if you're a paladin, a barbarian, or whatever, if you have another melee monster with you when you go into combat, you can decrease the amount of damage that you're receiving. If you have two creatures and you're splitting all the monsters between you, then you're reducing your incoming damage by half, essentially, right? Because half of the monsters are attacking you and half of the monsters are attacking the golem, right? And if you have a whole bunch of skeletons along with you, then you can reduce the amount of incoming damage that you have even more than that, right? So you can keep reducing that damage to as low as you possibly can by having a huge group of monsters. Well, it's just not really all that useful when, it reduces all your damage as a result. Poison Dagger also has another issue, which is, we talked about it being single target damage, but it's worse than that because, well, as a melee character, when you're running around just like one-donking everything, it can get really nasty when you can't deal with a large group of monsters at one time. Now, granted, as a Poison Dagger Necromancer, you still have access to Poison Nova, so you can cast that yourself, right? But there's a certain kind of just silliness about Poison Nova, is that, well, Poison Nova, of course, doesn't hit any of the monsters that you currently hit with your Poison Dagger. So if I run up and I stab something with Poison Dagger and then I use my Poison Nova, the monster that I stabbed with Poison Dagger doesn't get affected by the Poison Nova, and so it feels like kind of a wasted cast. I'm not really sure what I would do to fix any of this. I mean, the first option, obviously, with the tied to the daggers having low durability, is honestly, I think, that's a whole other video entirely, but durability needs to be fixed in general, and that durability needs to be upped across the board on pretty much all items within the game, and that would probably fix that as a result. Poison Dagger not even stacking with itself with multiple hits is an issue, and this is something that they really need to address when it comes to poison damage. Poison damage really needs to have a way to stack on the target when you hit a target multiple times with poison effects. I'm not exactly sure how they need to do this, whether hitting a target with multiple poison effects maybe like reduces the amount of poison resistance they have, or maybe it just increases the duration, which could be interesting. So like maybe if you hit a monster like 4 or 5 times with Poison Dagger, instead of it being a duration of 12.2 seconds, maybe the duration goes up to like a freaking minute or whatever, like 6 times it would be a minute. And then the monster would be poisoned for a full minute, just ticking away. If they made some way for Poison Dagger to stack with itself, it doesn't necessarily have to do more damage over the same period of time, but some way to make it beneficial to hit a monster with multiple poison effects at the same time. Maybe adding the durations together could be interesting. Like, for instance, if I hit a monster with Poison Dagger and then I tap them with a Poison Nova, perhaps it just adds 2 seconds to the end of the Poison Dagger, making it to be, like 12.4, 14.2 seconds instead of 12.2, and so forth and so on. And this way, it adds more damage on to what represents the already, 12.2 seconds of poison damage. So that way they stay poisoned for longer, and I don't have to worry about micromanaging the poison. Another interesting option would be is if the playstyle of Poison Dagger is supposed to be like this, which is where you stab, run, stab, run, etc. My suggestion on this would be to up the duration while keeping the damage relatively the same. So, in other words, instead of 12 point, sorry, not 12.2, 12.2 is the mana cost. Instead of 16.8 seconds with 27,000 damage, it would be like, I don't know, let's say 32 seconds. And the 27,000 damage would go to like 54,000 damage. The damage rate would stay the same. So if we actually divide this out, we could figure out what the damage rate would be, which is 27,611 divided by 16.8. Equals roughly about 1,643 damage per second, right? So assuming, of course, that the poison damage increases with the duration, we would be looking at something more along the lines of, say, like 16.8 times 2, which would be a total duration of 33.6, and then you would multiply that by 1,643.5, so times 1,643.5, which would get us a damage of 55,221. It might sound like a lot, but the truth of the matter is that because the duration is increased, it's the same damage that it's currently doing now, just over a longer period of time. And the reason why you would go for something like this with Poison Dagger is just simply so that you can actually perform exactly what they seem to be trying to get you to do anyway, which is run around, stab a target, run around, stab a target, and just kind of work that Poison Dagger magic around the group. And it's kind of silly because, honestly, I think Poison Nova, under the same conditions, I think might even put out more damage than like per second than Poison Dagger does. I mean, we could take the same equation. So we just did the equation for Poison Dagger, right? So let's take Poison Nova. Poison Nova does 7,871, right? But it's divided by 2 because it's a 2-second poison, which means it does 3,935.5 damage as an AoE damage. Per second, essentially, right? So when you think about it like that, Poison Dagger doesn't really seem all that impressive anymore. Poison Nova is an AoE ability that does 3,935 damage per second. Poison Dagger is a single target ability that is supposed to dish out a massive amount of single target damage, but as we just discovered with the previous calculation, is that it only does about 1,653.5 damage per second, which is less than half of Poison Nova's damage output, right? So perhaps another thing that we need to do to Poison Dagger is make it actually excel in the one thing that it's supposed to do better than everything else, which is single target damage. If Poison Dagger stays as a single target effect, it needs to be superior in damage output to all other poisons. In other words, it needs to be so good that it actually entices the Poison Necromancer to use it in single target combat. If you were fighting, for instance, Uber Diablo, and you had to choose between Poison Dagger and Poison Nova, Poison Nova is an AoE effect that hits everything on the screen, and Poison Dagger is a single target ability. The single target ability, Poison Dagger, should outperform the AoE damage ability, Poison Nova. Poison Nova has a 100% hit rate also because it is a spell, whereas Poison Dagger, since it is a melee ability, does not have a 100% hit rate and is dependent upon your attack rating, which is another issue. So one of the things that I would do is bring up the damage. So let's use Poison Nova as an example. So Poison Nova does, how much damage did we say Poison Nova did? It did 3,000 some odds. We can just divide that again. So 7,871 divided by 2 means it does about 3,935 damage per tick, right? So if this is 16.8 seconds and we multiply that by 16.8, then that means that Poison Dagger should be doing 66,116.4 if it even wants to do the same amount of damage as Poison Nova over the same time period. Now, the added benefit of Poison Dagger, obviously, is that Poison Dagger lasts for a long period of time, but it does have to be applied in person, up close and personal. You have to actually hit the target. You have to land a hit. You have to have the attack rating to actually land the hit, because if you don't have the attack rating, you can't even land the hit to get that. And so what we're looking at here is almost like a systemic problem between Poison Nova and Poison Dagger. Is that Poison Nova is superior in damage in just about every single way to Poison Dagger. It is a ranged ability. It is a AoE ranged ability. It does more damage per second. It is easier to cast. It always hits. And just in general makes Poison Dagger looks like absolute crap by comparison. My suggestion with Poison Dagger is just simply make it so that Poison Dagger actually excels in the one area that it's supposed to excel, which is single target damage. Give it the ability to put out more single target damage than the AoE damage Poison Nova. Poison Nova shouldn't be doing more damage than Poison Dagger. It really shouldn't. And somewhere in between should be this ability, which is a moderate AoE / moderate single target. It doesn't really do very good single target damage, and it doesn't really do very good AoE damage. It's closer to Poison Nova than Poison Nova is, or than Poison Dagger is, because if you look at the damage output, it does 54,000 to 58,000, which, as we were looking up on the calculator earlier, which I already closed, the the damage output for this is actually closer to Poison Nova than Poison Dagger is. So in the grand scheme of things, if you actually calculate out the damage and how much they do per second, Poison Nova is literally the king, from what I can tell. We could run Poison Explosion real quick, which is 58,340 divided by 16.8, which gives us 3,472, right? So then taking Poison Nova, we have 7,871 divided by 2, which gives us 3,935. So as you can see, even Poison Explosion doesn't exceed the amount of poison damage that Poison Nova does. The only thing that these abilities have over Poison Nova is duration. That's it. They last longer, right? Well, what does that even really matter, though? Like, I mean, if I can spam Poison Nova to the degree that it hits literally everything on the screen for the most part, and I don't have to worry about actually hitting anything, which is kind of the absolute silly thing about this ability, is you can just spam it, right? So you can just do this. 2 seconds, who cares? I can keep it up infinitely. I can hit everything on the screen with this ability, and it doesn't matter. Poison Explosion, on the other hand, literally hits like nothing. It has the tiniest little radius. It barely lasts any duration whatsoever. It's basically nothing, right? Poison Dagger, the lowest damage out of all of the skills, only hits one target. You got to run around hitting every single target, one target at a time. And you miss half the time too, which is a whole other thing. And this is a character that's set up for optimal Poison Dagger. Like I set this character up to be a powerhouse Poison Dagger character. The unfortunate side effect is that the characters that are much lower level than this, like as you're leveling, Poison Dagger is terrible to level with. It is sickening how awful it is. And Poison Explosion is awful too. I want to make an entire video on Poison Explosion as well. But I'm really hoping that eventually they fix this skill. Fix the durability so that the weapons don't break all the time, or maybe even make it so that Poison Dagger doesn't consume durability. That would be a very easy thing to do. Then you wouldn't have to touch the durability of daggers. Just make it so that Poison Dagger doesn't consume durability. I'm pretty sure that the devs could pull that off easily. Which would fix both of these. Poison Dagger not stacking with itself with multiple hits, doing nothing except for refreshing duration. Like I said, one thing they could do here is they could just have it increase the duration with the number of hits. So it would apply a 16.8 second poison, and then every single time you hit, it would increase the duration by 2 seconds and also modify the damage to be the equivalent of what it should be. So if each second is worth, say, 4,000 poison damage, and you add 2 more seconds, then it adds 8,000 more poison damage onto the end for each additional hit that you stack onto the target. And I think this would be a fine way to make it so that hitting a target multiple times with Poison Dagger wouldn't necessarily be terrible. Like I said, single target is absolutely horrible for Poison Dagger. It is the worst out of the entire lot. It does, however, obviously have access to open wounds, crushing blow, getting life tap, life leech, mana leech, and that is nice. But the durability makes it impossible to actually utilize that. The fact that hitting multiple times makes it pointless to actually get that, effect. Is also an issue. And I would honestly like to also see, and this is just my personal opinion, a little bit of enhanced damage on this as well. I know that there's not a physical damage character, and that physical damage doesn't really matter for this build, but a little bit of enhanced damage on this skill would go a long way to helping with the life leech and mana leech, which might make it more interesting to utilize as well. I think that's pretty much it, to be honest. I'm not really too upset with the skill itself, just kind of like the way that it's handled. Attacking faster wouldn't necessarily help. It certainly wouldn't hurt, but I'd like to see some sort of negative defense on here as well, though. I know they gave it a massive amount of attack rating percentage, but the fact is that the Necromancer doesn't really have a lot of attack rating, ways to get attack rating. It's not like they have passive attack rating bonuses or dagger mastery or anything like that. And maybe adding in just a negative 25% enemy defense on here could be a really big boon to the Necromancer as well. It's a dagger. It's supposed to pierce defenses and things like that. So, giving the Necromancer a little bit of a help when it comes to attack rating on this would be a big boon. Like I said, I know it has a huge percentage bonus, and that's great and all. Percentage bonuses are absolutely amazing if you have attack rating to modify, but if you don't have attack rating to modify, if you're not stacking dexterity, if you don't have a huge number of, AR charms in your inventory, you're not going to have any attack rating to modify. And so just having attack rating percentage alone, I don't think is enough for this particular character, because he is a caster. He is not meant to actually be in melee. He doesn't have the attack rating or anything to beef up the attack rating that he needs. So giving him some kind of negative defense on Poison Dagger, I think would be really nice. Maybe even instead of negative defense percentage, maybe it could be negative defense per hit. And that would be another way to encourage multiple hits of Poison Dagger to reduce the defense of the monster with each successive hit. Not entirely sure. I think that's pretty much it. I'm not going to go over anything else with Poison Dagger. I think that the stuff that I've gone over already would fix it completely. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just talking about the lowly Poison Dagger. And as always, keep watching.